Hey there, this is Josh, VP of Sales at DealMachine, and today I'm here just to talk to you a little bit about my personal background in sales and some pieces of advice I have for you as you're going through your sales process with wholesaling or real estate acquisition of any kind, really, and just some tidbits of advice that I have from my personal background and experience that may or may not be helpful to you as you guys are going out there in the field talking to sellers and even talking to buyers. First and foremost, my favorite piece of advice that I've ever been given and kind of gleaned from a book that I've read is your responsibility to the sellers or the customers that you're working with is to be an expert. And so a lot of times people think when they go into a meeting, their responsibility is to say yes as much as possible, get people really happy and excited. And a lot of times people forget that in reality, to get to the result that you want, you need to be positioned as an expert to the people that you're dealing with. A lot of this came personally for me from a book called The Challenger Sale, which I would highly recommend downloading or purchasing and giving it a quick read. The whole premise is that people respect people who are experts. And part of the thing that you're bringing to the table for a traditional seller of a home that you're dealing with is they don't know what the traditional selling process for a home is. A lot of times, most people will only sell maybe one to up to 5 homes in their entire life, whereas you're doing it multiple times a month. And so in reality, you're bringing to the table not just an offer that you're giving them on the property, you're actually the expert when it comes to how they're dispossessing their property, what they should be looking for, how should they be thinking about the valuation of their house, how should they be thinking about the repairs. You are the expert, and that's why you're at the table, and that's the mentality that you need to have when you go into these conversations. Your responsibility isn't to say yes to everything that they ask of you. Your responsibility is to sometimes say no, educate them on what they need to know, and help them get to the result that they're looking for, even if it doesn't necessarily mean going by the way that they thought they were going to get there. The second piece of advice I have for you is commit to helping them. And this is something that salespeople, by their very nature, and again, even if you're wholesaling, you're in a sales activity, period. You're going through a process to get a customer, to sell a house, to wholesale a house, whatever it is, you're in a sales process. And so the most common challenge that people need to overcome is thinking selfishly. And you'll see this all over the internet. Everyone's gonna preach this as you're helping people, you're not buying homes, all that good stuff. But not getting past just what people say and getting past the feel-good nature of really helping someone in a tough situation is you need to be in that mentality in that moment when you walk into the house. And so I personally, in any sales conversation that I ever have at this point, is I try to sit myself down for even if it's just 5 or 10 seconds before I go into the conversation and remind myself of what I'm trying to do in this scenario. In the end, I know personally I'd love to get a sale, would love to get a house under contract, whatever that may be, but before I start the conversation, I want to remind myself, first and foremost, I'm here to have a transparent and helpful conversation for the people I'm here having a conversation with. And that is the most important element. And just reminding yourself and getting yourself in that mindset right before you have that conversation goes a really long way in how those discussions go. What it is that your customers get out of the interaction, and oftentimes gets you to your personal ideal result, which is a house under contract, more often than not, because you thought of them first and not of personally what you're trying to get out of it. My next big tip is ask questions and actually listen and respond to the responses. So frequently, people who are new to any industry, any sales process, they develop a list of 10 questions that they want to get the answers to each and every time, and they go through them just like a script, and they don't respond to an answer. So they'll say something like, why are you selling this house? And someone's going to say, hey, I had a tough year, I had to get a surgery, and I have some health bills I need to cover. And then they'll say, oh great, so what did you need to get out of it then? So great, you just totally bypass someone opening up to you about a health issue that they had, and probably the first thing they're gonna want to talk to you about is just how much money they need to get out of it. They actually want you to relate to them as a human. They want you to respond and interact with them in a natural way, and you simply going to the next question on your list is not the way to do that. And so when I say this, I don't mean it's not just about building rapport, because yes, obviously having a human conversation with them is going to build rapport, and there's going to be value that you get out of that in the interaction. But learning more about their health problem and asking about it really transparently is going to create more trust with you. It might lead to answers and to questions that you wouldn't normally have asked. Like maybe it's a persistent health problem that they have and they need more money than just like paying the bill that was around, or maybe they have to now move to Florida to go visit family or something like that. And all those things are in the end, little tidbits of information that you can use in solution selling. So instead of your offer in the end just saying, here's a dollar amount, I think that this is what you want, it's, hey, you have to relocate to Florida to go live with family to help overcome this really challenge. That's really, really terrible. Maybe by me making this offer in this house and closing by this timeline helps you accomplish what it is you need to accomplish. And so again, you're not just asking questions to check boxes. You're asking questions to get information to start really transparent conversations so that you build rapport, you get access to little tidbits of information that are invaluable in delivering a really true solution for the person that you're trying to help, and you get to your result, again, more consistently by going this route. The next thing I like to really emphasize is solving the challenges that actually come up in the discussion and don't assume. Again, this is a little bit related to the last two elements where we talked about helping people and just listening to their answers. But so often in real estate, we assume it's someone's either got a financial problem or real estate problem, which is true usually, but those problems come in various different forms. And so often when you go into a conversation, you're going to assume that if they have, let's say, a financial problem, that they need this money now, they have no other means of getting it, and they have to sell the house, and you're going to assume that they're in like a really vulnerable position and that you got the sale locked up. When in reality, like it may or may not be that urgent to them. It may or may not be that important to them if they get rid of the property. And their challenge in selling the property might not be, hey, I don't have the money to fix it up. Maybe it's they don't have the time to fix it up, or maybe they're evaluating if they want to spend the time flipping a property themselves versus just selling it and getting a little bit less on the property. Again, like by assuming answers to these problems, you're passing up valuable information that you actually need to close a sale. And so this also leads me into like my favorite point that a VP of sales I worked with in the past at one of my last tech companies really preached was never get happy years. And so what that means is happy years in sales is so often, regardless of whatever business you're in, someone comes in and tells you, hey, I want to buy your product. I really need this done. Let's get it done tomorrow. And all of a sudden you skip the whole process of asking questions. You skip the process of understanding what it is they're trying to solve, what problem they really have. You just skip discovery altogether because you think it's a deal that's locked up. So for example, specifically in the real estate space is if someone calls you and says, hey, I have a house I want to sell really fast, you get really pumped because you think you know like you're a fast solution to sell a house. They're talking to you, so you think you've got all of this locked up. When in reality, as we've kind of just talked about, they might want to sell the house fast for dozens, if not hundreds of reasons. Some of it might be financial. Some of it might be they're moving and they just need to get rid of a house. Sometimes it might just be, they could just be saying this outright because they're responding to a postcard they got of yours and they don't really need to sell the house fast. But you don't know that until you start prying the questions, until you start countering and saying, okay, great, like I'm happy to give you an offer, but let's slow down. Like, can you tell me a little more why you need to sell the house? Can you tell me about what would happen if we don't sell the house in a week? What's going to happen to you or the house itself? Again, like by slowing yourself down and asking these really critical questions in discovery, what you're doing is actually giving yourself ammo. So when it comes to the ask, when it comes to the closing moment where you're like, hey, it sounds like you said earlier, you need to sell this house fast. We talked a little bit more. You mentioned that if you don't sell this house in 2 weeks, it's going to be put up for auction. Great. You've identified actual motivators in that moment. You've identified the timeline. You've identified the key reasons that something has to happen with the house. And then when you come and deliver an offer, you can address all of those in your offer, as well as the financial side of it, what the actual offer is. And again, you get to your solution faster that way by not speeding up the sales process, but actually by slowing it down and making sure you properly go through discovery. The final piece of advice I have for you is something that you're going to hear over and over again in any industry you're in: follow up. Usually, more often than not, no is always the first answer. Very, very rarely is someone's first answer on the spot yes. And so sometimes you can get through multiple no's into a yes in the first call. Great when that can happen. Still try for it. But again, more often than not, it's not a yes on the first go. It's not a yes right away. And so follow up consistently follow up, whether that's email, whether that's phone, text, whatever it is, unless they're telling you to stop following up and mention a specific date in the future that you should then follow up and wait to, you're not following up enough if you're not being told that you're being annoying. And we're not saying that in a way, it's like, you don't try to be annoying to people, but literally try to be helpful. And again, you are helping people if you're getting them to a solution to their problem, even if it's making them go a little bit faster than they felt initially comfortable with. By you following up, you're staying persistent, you're delivering on your end of the bargain, which is being the expert to dispossess a house, which again, could happen faster or slower than you want, could happen faster or slower than they originally intended. But you're that expert, so be the solution, follow up, do all those other things we talked about when it comes to asking questions, listening to their answers, providing feedback. Don't get happy, don't speed up the process. You actually want to slow it down in terms of discovery before you deliver a offer, and then follow up after that. So those are my best pieces of advice from my sales background that I think are going to be applicable in one way or another to your real estate sales processes. So feel free to take away from that what you will. Ask me if you've got feedback, or if you've got feedback, tell me. If you've got questions, ask me. Happy to help and trying to give my opinions on that kind of stuff moving forward. Thank you very much and have a good day.